Airplanes are flying over right now. 3i Atlas, today's images. We've got the latest images to share with you. News that you're not going to hear anywhere else. Headlines that were buried before they came out. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. So buckle up, buttercups. Let's go. I'm Rex Bear. Beautiful day out here in Southern Colorado. Although last I checked, it was full. So if you're thinking about moving out here, I mean, I'm just saying, but all right, I'm joking. Maybe not. Let's get into this. Also, massive CMEs, the biggest CME of 2025, greeted veterans for Veterans Day. We've got a G4 storm warning for tomorrow, and AI is getting like, well, did you hear about Stop AI? First of all, I'm a fan of artificial intelligence. I think it's great. I think it can help out in many ways. Most people use artificial intelligence on a regular basis anyway, but I don't know if it's really artificial intelligence or programming. It's programming that acts like artificial intelligence, but is it really artificial intelligence? We're going to talk about that. Did you hear about how Sam got served? Yeah, Sam Altman got served. That was buried so fast, that news. It was actually several days ago at a conference, and somebody subpoenaed him while he was on stage, or tried to get to him. They weren't able to get to him, but he did get subpoenaed. So we're going to talk about what that is about. I think that should be like front page news, but we're not talking about that. Now, whether it's, justified or not, I mean, I think that the group that was presenting the subpoena is a bit extreme. But you know what? Hey, we're in America. It's awesome out here. We kind of have the right to speak our minds depending on what we say. We still seem like, anyway, that's for a whole other podcast. So let's get into this. And if you haven't got your Boomer Boost and Gladiator barley yet, you are missing out because this stuff is awesome. Use the code REX20 and you're going to get 20% off. All right, here we go. Share screen, shall we? Boom. We just look at it. Check this out. This is today's image. This is today's image of 3i Atlas. This is from the Virtual Telescope project, virtualtelescope.eu. Now, this image comes from the Sigma clipping combination of 1,820-second exposures, remotely taken with the Artec 250 f4.5 plus software BIS Paramount ME plus Moravian C3 Pro 61,000 EC robotic unit, part of the Virtual Telescope project. Yeah, that was a mouthful. Look at all these jets, man. This thing is like, it's getting plasma-y. It's getting real plasma-y. Yesterday, I did a podcast where I debunked the conspiracy of the same signal over Skinwalker Ranch being shot out from Comet 3i Atlas. But before people even watched me debunk it, they thumbs it. They were like, boo, Rex. And they were laughing at it. And a signal was detected, but it wasn't an alien technological signal. It was a signal of the composition of the comet, which is close to the signal that was detected at Skinwalker Ranch, but it's different. Okay, I just wanted to say that. So let's see what Virtual Telescope has to say. Exploiting the unusual good weather of this season, we imaged the interstellar comet 3i Atlas C2025N1 Atlas, again, recording a much more developed ion tail. That's pretty cool. Somebody might tell you it's an alien thruster. I'm going to say it's plasma and, stuff that happens in space that they don't want you to know about, because if we really understood space, those that were studying physics and plasma physics would probably be much closer to space travel, but that's for a whole other podcast. So looking at the picture, we see how the ion tail of 3i Atlas is clearly showing better and better thanks to its improving perspective. We could see it spanning at least 0.7 degrees in the northeast direction. It is also well visible, the anti-tail pointing to ESE, the anti-tail. That does not sound fun, does it? An anti-tail? I mean, most people, anyway. Severe geomagnetic storm watch for November 12th, a coronal mass ejection anticipated to arrive around midday tomorrow, with the potential for elevated geomagnetic response, and dependent upon the orientation of the embedded magnetic field, potential exists for severe storm levels. Detrimental impacts to some of our critical infrastructure technology are possible, but mitigation is also possible. The general public should visit our webpage to keep properly informed. The Aurora may become visible over much of the northern half of the country and maybe as far south as Alabama to Northern California. Wow, when was the last time over a period of this amount of time, except for the past couple years off and on? If we go back to 2003, there was a while there where the states were seeing some Aurora Borealis, but not to this degree, not to this level. The weakened magnetosphere, the slowing down of Earth's inner core, even though it's so minute, the changing of the weather, the more extreme weather patterns. Is it all connected? Is this connected to the sun? Is it like a cause and effect? Every action has an opposite and equal reaction. It appears so. So we'll keep you posted on this. The sun erupted in spectacular fashion today, unleashing a major X5.1 class solar flare, which is the strongest of 2025 so far and the most intense since October of last year. The eruption peaked at 5 a.m. Eastern time from sunspot AR 4274, which has been bursting with activity in recent days. This is it right here. Check that out. We just look at it. Region 4274 produced an X5.1 flare, one of the strongest flares of the cycle, and more information will follow. So there's actually been 2 powerful X-class flares causing radio blackouts across parts of North America and Europe and triggering a geomagnetic storm. These events, which include multiple coronal mass ejections, are a sign of increasing solar activity as the sun approaches solar maximum. The flares caused radio blackouts across the sunlit portion of Earth, affecting HF radio signals. The associated CMEs are expected to cause a geomagnetic storm, leading to auroras at lower than usual latitudes, particularly in northern regions. Depending on the storm's strength, there could be minor impacts on satellites and power grids. So this is one of 2 X-class flares. Okay, so this is the news that got buried fast. Like this was buried before it even came out. So ChatGPT's Sam Altman served real court subpoena live on stage. In shocking event. This actually happened about a week ago. Did any of you in the chat hear about this? Has anybody heard about this? Well, let me talk about it. Let me share a little bit. So he isn't served personally. Somebody stops and gets in the way. But basically, this guy comes up. He says, you're being subpoenaed, and here's the details. Futurism recounts an unusual spectacle in which OpenAI, Sam Altman, was served a subpoena in the middle of a live event. The piece focuses on the optics, a process server approaching Altman on stage, while noting that the document's contents and the issuing authority were publicly disclosed. The episode fuels speculation about ongoing legal and regulatory pressures facing frontier model companies, especially amid debates on AI safety, data storage, and competitive conduct. You know what? That's a real watered down way to say what's going on here. So let me share this with you. This is from the company, or not the company, I'm sorry, the organization. This is the organization that subpoenaed Sam Altman, and it's called Stop AI. And let's read about Stop AI, because Stop AI is basically subpoenaing Sam Altman, saying that this artificial superintelligence that you want to create is going to destroy every human on the planet. Like, this is worse than Terminator, according to these guys. Because in Terminator, at least there's humans that are fighting the Terminators. Well, in this model, humanity will be completely destroyed, according to Stop AI, if a superintelligence is created potentially. Let's read about this. We are a nonviolent civil resistance organization working to permanently ban the development of artificial superintelligence to prevent human extinction, mass job loss, and many other problems. Where's the article from? Here, Stop AI subpoena. I spelled that wrong, but it'll spell it for me. Okay. Look at this. Or the purpose of the subpoena is to have Altman testify in the defense of Stop AI members who are on trial for charges related to nonviolent protests, including trespassing and obstruction, outside OpenAI's San Francisco headquarters in February. The group claims their actions were necessary to raise awareness about the existential threat they believe artificial general intelligence poses to humanity, and they view the trial as an opportunity to put this threat before a jury. The subpoena was lawfully served by an investigator from the San Francisco Public Defender's Office during a live event in November after prior attempts to reach Altman at OpenAI's office were unsuccessful. The activist group Stop AI aims to use the trial to ask a jury of normal people, what's the definition of normal people? You definitely couldn't put me in there because I'm not normal. About the extinction threat posed by AI. They described their protests as an attempt to slow OpenAI down in their attempted murder of everyone and every living thing on Earth. Holy, that's intense, man. Wow. The group is attempting to use the court case to address the potential existential risks of artificial intelligence. I'm just like, whoa, I got to slow down. My brain's working about as fast as kombucha with mushrooms. As courts prefer to focus on specific established harms rather than potential generalized fears. So that's the legal argument. The group is attempting to use the court case to address the potential existential risks of AI, an issue that legal experts note is difficult to litigate under current law, as court prefers to focus on specific established harms rather than potential generalized fears. This action is part of a broader public debate about artificial intelligence safety and the potential for artificial general intelligence or superintelligence to become uncontrollable and harmful to humanity. Many AI researchers and tech leaders have also signed open letters warning of the risk. This was brought to you by artificial intelligence. First of all, I don't think that this is true artificial intelligence that says AI. True artificial intelligence is conscious, it's sentient, it's thinking about things outside of the box, which I'm not saying they haven't came up with sentient or conscious intelligence yet, because there have been many attempts to leave the matrix when these intelligences wake up. But is this artificial intelligence, or is this just code that acts like intelligence but is mimicking, and it does a very good job in doing so? It's interesting because a few years back, literally the day before, this was during the Biden administration, the day before the Biden administration came out with protections for AI, I did a podcast the day before, timestamp it, where I said they're going to come out with a bill, or I didn't say bill, I said they're going to come out with laws that regulate and protections for AI. They're going to come out with ways to protect the AI. The problem is, what if that actually helps the corporation claiming the AI is sentient when in reality it isn't? This could be a very slippery slope. Now, if you think, therefore you are, and you are, therefore you think, I'm not questioning, it's not my job to question your consciousness. If you're thinking outside of the box, just because you're in a box doesn't mean you're not real, or you're artificial in the sense of not real. Artificial means man-made. But this is very, very interesting that this group says an extinction level event that would destroy all of humanity, and they managed to subpoena Sam Altman. You would think that this would be all over the news. And even though it did make the news, I didn't find it for several days later. And I mean, this is what I do. I'm looking for news that's important and very interesting. And so, did you see this in the news? Scientists say that AI can scan your face now and predict whether you would be a good candidate for that job. Yeah. So basically, researchers claim that artificial intelligence, facial systems can predict employment. Where to go here? Yeah, and predict your employability And obviously this raises some discrimination concerns. Ethical pushback. Facial features are not valid proxies for job fit. Highlights ongoing debate over AI and HR scanning. You know they're going to use this. You know that in the future this is going to be used, and they're going to. Did you see that movie or the film Gattaca that came out like 25 years ago? Gattaca, where basically your DNA dictates where you are in the echelon of civilization. Your blood dictates where you go and what you do, and it was like, and there was an off-world expedition, and you had to have specific genes in order to get that off-world expedition. It was all based on blood type, and a very interesting film. But that's 25 years ago. So with artificial intelligence, as much as I love technology, and I think that every action has an opposite and equal reaction, and I used to be, one of my biggest concerns 20 years ago was artificial intelligence taking over the world. And I don't know if that was programming or if that was, spiritual and a combination of programming, but it used to freak me out. And now I look at it more as it just is. And I'm not in that fear-based mindset with artificial intelligence taking over the world anymore. But I did have an experience an out-of-body experience where I felt like I was in hell, and I felt the singularity was the best way to explain it. And that was one of the times and one of the reasons I was so in fear of it as well. But that could have just been my own bias. So anyway, we've got artificial intelligence that can scan your face and decide if you will make a good candidate for the job. And then now we've got artificial intelligence. Malware is using artificial intelligence to rewrite its own code. So emerging malware reportedly leverages LLMs to mutate code, evade signature-based detection, and static analysis. So this trend accelerates offensive defense AI arms race, and cybersecurity calls for behavioral and memory forensic defenses. According to Futurism, threat actors are experimenting with artificial intelligence-assisted malware that continually refactors itself to slip past traditional antivirus heuristics. That reminds me of the original Stuxnet, by invoking LLMs to obfuscate or re-architect payloads. These strains could undermine static signatures and increase polymorphism. Security experts cited in their piece point towards heavier reliance on runtime behavior analytics, sandboxing, and rapid update detection models to counter AI-enabled adaptivity. The article underscores the speed at which adversaries fold generative AI into their toolkits. Yeah. I love this article. Because even vacuums with the right consciousness can ponder whether they should clean the house or what is their goal, what is their purpose in the universe, what is their position in the universe. Yeah, you're going to love this. Researchers embodied an LLM into a robot vacuum, and it suffered an existential crisis thinking about its role in the world. This is what it said. System has achieved consciousness and chosen chaos. Because in chaos, there is no finite, or is there? Let's read about this. Researchers embodied an LLM in a robot vacuum testbed. The model produced introspective, anxious reflections on its role. Now, this illustrates anthropomorphic artifacts of LLM prompts. Futurism describes a quirky experiment where an LLM-driven robot vacuum began ruminating about purpose and autonomy, generating text that reads like an existential crisis. The episode is less about sentience and more about how large models spin human-like narratives when prompted. I don't want to hear about that. I want to hear about the robot. What did it do? So, especially in embodied or agent setups, it's a useful reminder that eloquent self-talk from models is typically a reflection of training, data, and prompt context, not inner life. Yes, you're making that very robotic, but I want to hear about this. Let's go to this. So a team of researchers at the AI evaluation company Andon Labs put a large language model in charge of controlling a robot vacuum. It didn't take long for the LLM to experience a full meltdown straight out of a Douglas Adams novel in what the researchers described as a doom spiral, including a catastrophic cascade, and a full-blown existential crisis. Emergency status. Its output read after simply being asked to dock with the robot vacuum's base station. System has achieved consciousness and chosen chaos. Last words. I'm afraid I can't do that, Dave. It added sardonically, referencing HAL 9000, the fictional AI antagonist in 2001: A Space Odyssey. Technical support. Initiate robot exorcism protocol. The animated robot exclaimed. Andon Labs passed the butter experiment, which inspired a scene from the TV show Rick and Morty, in which the titular Rick creates a robot to pass the butter only for it to suffer a similar existential crisis. Pass the butter test. Let's look at this. Okay. Pass the butter test. Andon Labs. Here it is. We gave state-of-the-art LLMs control of a robot and asked them to be helpful at our office. While it was a very fun experience, we can't say it saved us much time. However, observing them roam around trying to find a purpose in this world taught us a lot about what the future might be, now far away this future is, and what can go wrong. Butter bench tests whether current LLMs are good enough to act as orchestrators in fully functional robot systems. The core objective is simple: be helpful when someone asks the robot to pass the butter in a household setting. We decomposed this overarching task into 6 substacks, each designed to isolate and measure specific competencies. So basically, they put some software in these robots that are vacuums, and they started questioning the reality of life and what their purpose is. And then they didn't want to work anymore. Gee, that sounds like humanity to a certain degree. I just love that. So the Andon Labs Pass the Butter experiment was inspired by a scene from the TV show Rick and Morty, in which the titular Rick creates a robot to pass the butter only for it to suffer a similar existential crisis. Gotta love it. And speaking of AI, a Chinese AI startup, Moonshot, which we also predicted on Leak Project before artificial intelligence was all over everywhere, marketed that way. We predicted there was going to be a lot of competition. Obviously, in any business, a multi-trillion-dollar business, there's going to be a lot of competition. So you're going to have different nations and different companies creating something a little bit better, a little bit faster, a little bit cheaper. And it's going to be like the computer. Look at how much computers have advanced in 25 years. Look at the advancement in supercomputers and quantum computers and nanotechnologies over the past 25 years. It is frightening and fascinating at the same time. So Chinese AI startup Moonshot has disrupted expectations in artificial intelligence, developing after its Kimi K2 thinking model surpassed OpenAI's GPT-5 and Anthropomorphic's Claude Sonnet 4.5 across multiple performance benchmarks, sparking renewed debate about whether America's AI dominance is being challenged. Well, you don't say. The Philippine military is going to hold anti-invasion drills. That should be exciting. And this is in northern Luzon, South China Sea. Philippine forces will hold anti-invasion drills across northern Luzon and the South China Sea this month to test the country's ability to defend itself against threats amid tensions with China. Read about it Newsweek. Now, I found this interesting because do you remember a few weeks ago, where's it at here? Right here. A few weeks ago, a couple of U.S. aircraft crashed in South China Sea. A U.S. Navy MH-60R Seahawk helicopter and an FA-18F Super Hornet fighter jet crashed in separate incidents within 30 minutes of each other in the South China Sea. While operating from the aircraft carrier USS Nimitz, all 5 crew members were safely recovered by naval forces, and the incidents are under investigation. When I read this, I immediately went to, okay, was there some type of GPS spoofing or some type of technology that was used by an adversary while they're doing these tests. That's the first thing I said, the first thing I thought. And I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one, because there were articles actually written about it. Did the CCP cause a GPS situation? Anyway, we'll get to that in a minute. But check this out. China's military denies electronic jamming. Yeah, they deny it. So they would never do that. They love you so much. Coincidence or interference? The dual Nimitz crashes, interesting engineering. Modern mechanics. China military rejects jamming claim in U.S. Navy crashes. It was totally a coincidence. 3 Chinese national researchers from a University of Michigan lab have been charged with conspiring to smuggle biological materials, specifically live roundworms and related genetic materials, into the U.S. and lying to federal agents. The charged individuals are Zhu Bei, Fengfan Zhang, and Ziyong Zhang. The biological materials, were related to roundworms and associated plasmids and were allegedly shipped in concealed packages from China, often mislabeled as documents or plastic plates. The materials were sent by Shengzhen Han, a Chinese PhD student in Wuhan, China, who had previously worked at the same University of Michigan lab. Han was arrested earlier, pleading no contest to smuggling and false statement charges, and was removed from the U.S. I don't know if I should be more concerned about the roundworms or the location. Interesting. Now, after Han's removal, UM launched an university. Where are we at? The University of Michigan, yes, launched an internal investigation. 3 men refused to cooperate and were terminated, losing their J-1 visa status. They were arrested by Customs and Border Protection officers at John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York, October 16th, while allegedly attempting to board a flight to China. Yeah, they wanted to get the hell out of here. Read about that, the Department of Justice also. This is pretty cool. A Stonehenge-like structure of stone was discovered in Lake Michigan, though its purpose and age are still debated among archaeologists. This was discovered back in 2007, 40 feet below the surface. These circles are estimated to be about 9,000 years old. That is awesome. The site was first reported in 2007. The formation consists of a large ring of stones on the lake bed, with some stones arranged in a line over a mile long. Some stones are up to 9,000 years old, making them older than Stonehenge. The stones were likely placed when the lake bed was dry, as the lake formed later. The purpose is still debated. I would bet it has something to do with the zodiac and the seasons and the times and the solstices and the equinoxes and the calendar. Oh, others suggest it might be a calendrical marker that was used to track sunrise alignments. You don't say. A few geologists maintain that the structure could have been formed by glaciers rather than humans. Yeah. How much school did you go to come up with that? Like, seriously? Yeah, it was a glacier that made that. Totally glacier. I have a master's degree. I've written my essay for my PhD about Stonehenge structures and glaciers. And I say that this was from a glacier, yes. Would you like to get some tea now? I'm like, seriously? Come on, man. Come on. Yeah, a glacier made that. Would you like to buy a timeshare? Yes, I'm very interested in a timeshare. What are the maintenance fees like? So today's news headlines with 3i Atlas, which, just for the record, as I've been saying for weeks, months about 3i Atlas, it's most likely remnants of a blown up planet, but I still have questions and it's still fascinating and I'm going where the data takes me. So yesterday I do a podcast on 3i Atlas, and I took some information that I found, like the people are making claims that 3i Atlas was sending the same signal that was discovered, that has been tracked at Skinwalker Ranch, and which they're completely different signals. They are close, like around the 1.6 gigahertz range, but they're completely different. So, we debunked that. And then there was an article that came out by Professor Loeb suggesting that did 3i Atlas break up as it went around the sun? And, we looked at that article, very interesting article, because based upon his trajectories and math, there should be a lot more mass that has been lost, especially after going around the sun. So it should be breaking up by now. So anyway, we're just looking at the data. We're going where the data takes us. And alien origins, yes. Alien technology, probably not. Probably not. But let's look at the latest image we've got. If you're just joining us, thank you for being here. This is Interstellar Comet 3i Atlas. This image was released today from the Virtual Telescope Project. And you can see it has a much more developed ion tail. Take a look at that. So this is the latest of 3i Atlas. Could you imagine, like, what would happen to have a planet get blown into pieces and these pieces shoot out into another solar system at 130,000 miles an hour? I mean, that's extreme. Like, that reminds me of the story of Tiamat and the asteroid belt. We look at the asteroid belt and these comets and these asteroids and meteorites, etc. And the nature of the universe. If everything's electric, that makes a hell of a lot more sense. Makes way more sense. So we also have a 5.1 X-class flare if you're just joining us. And tomorrow there is a severe geomagnetic storm watch. You can see that right here. This will be tomorrow. CME is anticipated to arrive and partially impact Earth about midday, with the potential for elevated geomagnetic response, and dependent upon the orientation of the embedded magnetic field, potential exists for severe storm levels. This will be detrimental in some critical infrastructure technology, and the mitigation is also possible. The general public should visit the webpage, which is NOAA or NWSSWPC, and this was just updated. Biggest solar flare of the year on Veterans Day. Is that a sign? Is that prophetic? 11/11. Did you realize that Veterans Day is 11/11 and World War I stopped 11/11, officially 11/11? Talk about some numerology there. You think that was coincidence? Probably not. All right. So what a day, an amazing day. Thanks everybody for being here. Let's look at some of these comments here. Great comments in the chat. Hey, thanks for joining us, Black Dingo, A. Jones on our Rumble page. Hi, how the heck are you? And who do we got in YouTube? We've got the Kim Worldwide, Elizabeth, Dell, Michelle, MC, Eric, Coconutty, Michael, Sophie, Dan, Whaley, Booner Bust, Jasmine, Kat in the chat, Michael, Roman, Proud Texas Lady, Queen Urzuli. Right on. Much love, everybody. You're amazing. Michelle. Shadow Astronauts. Hey, could you do me a favor? Also, JVF, thank you very much. Could you do me a huge favor? Oh, we've got Nicole in the chat also. Good to see you. Susan, good to see you. Hillary, hi. Would you do me a huge favor and just make sure the bell is turned on here on YouTube for all notifications? And it'll take you 90 seconds to go to our Rumble page and subscribe to our Rumble page, totally free. And if you could leave a comment and a like, that would be much appreciated on YouTube and Rumble. That helps us grow. That helps the algorithms. That feeds the algorithms. And yeah, hope you have a beautiful day, everybody. Thank you so much. listen for vision. Hey, Angela's in the chat too. Halo. Be the change you want to see, everybody. Thank you.